said, don't worry, I would not penetrate. That was the only thing he said. Don't worry, I would not penetrate. And he brought out his penis and was just rubbing over my body. When it was done, I was just looking like, it's less than 10% of abuse that are strangers. The remaining 90%
is by known people.
Known people. The closer they are, the more easier it is. Because I'm used to touches, if you touch me at night, I'll wake up. Except if you don't have ulterior motive. Even if you have ulterior motive, any touch that is erotic, I would wake up. Even if it's my cloth that touch me, I would open my eyes.
Welcome to today's edition of the Winning Woman Show. Today we're dealing with a very special and a very sensitive topic. We're talking about bouncing back from childhood abuse. Research shows that as many as 2 out of every 3 females has had some form of unwanted sexual interference at some point in their life, often as children or as young adults. Well, today I have a very special lady in the studio with me who's going to be sharing her story and her journey. Her name is Kikelomo and she's a child protection advocate. She's going to be sharing her journey from childhood abuse to advocate and survivor with us. This is one show you don't want to miss. I want you to call your girlfriends, call your sisters, get on the phone, get your friends watching, because this is a show that will be a help not only to you but also to your children and your loved ones. Hello, Kike. Welcome to the Winning Woman Show.
Hello, ma'am. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Well, today you were talking about bouncing back from childhood abuse.
Yes, ma'am.
And I read your book. I was introduced to your book by a special young lady who is a friend of yours. And I read your story and I was aghast. But I'm not going to put us in the deep end. We're going to go in little by little. So maybe you can start by telling us a little bit about yourself and what it is that you do.
Okay, I am a children photographer. I run a business that focuses on children, maternity and family, and our vision is to promote family bond. And then I also advocate for child protection.
Okay. So tell me a little bit about that other part of your work, the childhood protection. How did that come about?
Okay, that came about from my experience with child abuse, sexual abuse majorly. And I think I've always loved anything that has to do with children protected, children being safe. It has just always been part of me, and I think that's what eventually made me a children photographer, really. I learned I kind of started out as a general photographer, so I can photograph weddings, events, and the likes of it. But I just found out that God directed me into children photography. I'd never heard of it before. I read books on how to photograph children, but now saying that your business is surrounded around children was by divine direction, so I just obeyed. But from photographing series of children, newborn babies, 6 months, 1 year, I just do for every time I see a child, I just do that, is this child safe? Or I'm engaging parents. And also, how do you manage when you're at work with the children? And before you know it, I just knew that I'm just so much interested in how these children are kept safe. And then I get opportunities to speak to children about sexual abuse, share my story. I just got deeper and deeper into child protection.
Okay, fantastic. But I guess you're kind of a pioneer in this, because I'm sure there are not many people doing what you're doing.
Well, there are NGOs, there are organizations. Last year, Lagos State just opened a department for sexual violence response team and the likes of it. But I think the world is just waking up to child protection. We're talking about abuse, but I've never heard of it before, because me too, it was by the Holy Spirit. I would not say I knew all that I'm doing right now just by the leading of the Holy Spirit, a step at a time, and I found myself here.
Okay. All right, so let's hear a little bit about your personal story and your journey. Tell me a little bit about your family life and your background.
Okay, my family, I'm first of 3 children from my mom. And my mother got married very early. She was pregnant with me, so she had to get married. And she had little understanding of what marriage was or how it is to raise a child. And then because I was sure she wanted to leave home, because from the stories I heard about the family and how the family was, I just knew that leaving home was a very reasonable decision she made. And we always had issues. We had series of issues. My mother expected me to do a lot of things. She just assumed that I should know. You're the firstborn, you should know. She'd take care of your sister. My younger sister came much more later, so it was just me and my immediate sister first. So my mother would always beat you, shout, scream, and then we had house help initially until she got pregnant and she had to go. My mother felt, why would I get another house help? Kike is like 8, 7, so I think 7 or 8 about, so she can take care of her younger sister when they're back from school. But then I had my first experience with abuse when I was 7. But then my mother did not do anything about it. Of course, she would not know that I would still remember today. So when my mother's sister read my book, she was there the day the thing happened, and she was surprised that Kike so remembered, because my mother and her, everybody kept quiet over the years, like it never happened.
So they hoped that you would forget.
They would know, they thought that I would not remember.
Okay.
Ever
Okay.
again.
So you tell a pretty gruesome story in your book, and it seems like you have one episode, and the reader hopes that will be the last episode, and there's another episode, and there's another episode. So you talk about extensive abuse from relatives as well as neighbors and people that you lived with. And it started when you were as little as 7 years old.
Yes, at least that's the one I know of. I don't know if it ever happened before then, but that's the one that I could remember from when I was 7. And my mother had to go to work as usual because she goes to work. Sometimes she's out maybe, sometimes before 6. There's somebody at home, she goes too early, and it was just a provision store. She sells in wholesale, but she so loved business. The way I love business now, though, really. But she'll be out so early and come out very late. And my father would like, except it's something that's selling that your store. It is the same thing. Like, you don't need to go out this early and come back so late with the children. So that day, I think, I'm not sure we were on midterm or whatever, but I just knew that we did not go to school. So probably midterm break. And then the house help, my mother, I think I registered her to learn sewing somewhere in the early hours of the day when we were out in school. So my mother did not ask her to stay back that day, that since she would be back early, that we should just stay with the neighbor. And then I can remember well that one of my neighbor's son said, oh, that let's go into the room and play mommy and daddy. And then my youngest sister and his own younger brother too. So we all went into the room, and then they put my sister and his brother on another bed, and they were talking. Those ones were just talking because everybody was small. So they were talking there, and they put me on a bigger bed. I knew he put out his trouser and I saw his penis, and that was the last I remembered. It was when the house help came back and she woke me up. And when she did, I could not walk. From their flat to our flat. And she was like, Kike, what's wrong with you? She cannot even speak English though, but what's wrong with this girl? And I told her exactly what I remember, that this is what happened. This person said she got to mommy and daddy, and that's the only thing I knew. So, of course, I think she guessed what would have been wrong, because when my mother came back at night, thank God she spoke up on time, because my mother would have given her some slap before she would. Okay, what happened to my daughter? And, and of course, when my mother asked me, I gave her the same story, which is the same story I'm sharing 23 years after.
So, you know that something happened, but you weren't actually conscious to experience it personally.
No, I was not. So my mother, and I told my mother the same thing. She barged into the neighbor's house. She was hungry. She was spitting fire. Everybody was hot. And the neighbor said I was lying. The mother was back there. The mother was not around there. The mother said I was lying to that. Our son cannot do that. And that, children can say all sorts. My mother said, say, let's assume she fainted. Let's assume she's lying. She was in your house today and she cannot walk. So explain what happened. And then eventually she apologized and said, well, that they were sorry, but she still didn't think that son did anything. And I'm still saying this thing 3 years after. I would not be lying as such. But I can remember that I could not go to school the next day because I could not go to the toilet. I could not use the toilet well. There was so much pain.
Right. So your mom picked up your baton, really. She supported you. She spoke up for you. But aside of that, nothing else.
Well, she cannot make much noise because my father was not here. My father lived in London. So if it went beyond the 2 flats and somehow my father heard, she knew she would have to pack her bag and go back to her mother's house. So let's just have had, okay, I've had the apology, everything, and it went.
So they wanted to keep it quiet. So what lesson did that tell you? What lesson do you think you took from that?
For me, I think first, for every abuse case, especially in the case of sexual abuse, I think therapy should be sought, no matter how small it is. Okay, I know then that there was enough information about these kind of things, but speak to someone that deals with children or something that. Will there be any effect to this child? Do you think this child can remember? Is there anything, or go to a doctor? Is my daughter okay? And a doctor, like a pediatrician, will know, okay, have you sought emotional therapy for this girl? Even if it's just talking about it and finding out there's something they could do about it. But she didn't do anything about it. I wasn't even angry about it, but the fact was that I just did not forget.
Right, so you remembered what happened. At the time, did you expect more to be done than was done?
No.
You didn't. So it's only with kind of looking back that you realize that more should have done.
Yes.
Okay. Now, unfortunately, the abuse didn't stop there. There were further incidents. In your book, there were incidents with 5 other different individuals. Oh yes, I counted them. I even have all their names here. Uncle Okpe, who was your mom's brother.
Yes.
Uncle Dakpo and his son Tokwe, and another neighbor, so these were all grown men who interfered with you sexually at some point in your childhood journey. Now, I know that the person that was maybe the most significant, it seemed to me in the book, was Uncle Dakpo. Would you say that was?
Yes, that one was I don't know if it's the most impactful, the wrong impact though, but that one I was much older. So, in fact, I can't explain it. That one lasted longer. And it was, I think, till I got to SS3, was when I was able to stop that. So SS3, so that was like for 2 years, thereabouts. My father's sister's husband.
Right.
Yes.
Your father's sister's husband.
Yes,
your uncle. Now, I think what's very interesting about that story is you see quite a classic pattern with abusers in that he groomed you and prepped you before abusing you sexually. Because when we first meet him in the story, we meet him as a good character. We meet him as a favorite uncle who gives lots of gifts, who treats you special. So when you were asked to move and stay with him, it was something you were excited about. It was something you looked forward to. And in the initial stages of your stay with him, you enjoyed a lot of favor with him. Looking back now, do you see that as preparation for what was going to take place? That he was trying to buy your affection, perhaps?
Well, he does that with everybody. So I did not say that mine was different, but I'll just say, I think when he picked on me, or when he realized that, okay, I can use Kike for my sexual gratification, then he paid special interest, but it was nice to everybody. Even when my father suggested I stay there for him to write my junior YX, that she would be disturbing me at home. My mother did not want me to go there. First of all, I think since that incident when I was young, I grew up knowing my mom not allowing us to have any close relationship with men. You can never have it. No boy, if you go outside, you can't even say hello to a boy, you're in trouble. But she knew that my uncle was so nice. She liked him. My grandmom liked him. So she just knew that, okay, even if for anything, my daughter will be safe in the hands of this man. Okay, so because of him, I'll let her go.
Okay. Can you share a little bit with us about the nature of the abuse? What was it that used to happen with him?
Okay, it was different things though. Initially, the first day he would abuse me, I came back from writing my first exam in school, and then there was nobody at home. And then he just put me closer and kissed me. I was surprised. Then I was already reading a lot of novels, so I didn't know what to think. And then he just like kissing me, no talking, except for don't worry, just relax. Don't worry, just relax. You know, from kissing that same day, he stripped me. It was not a let me kiss her today or let me kiss her tomorrow. And I was quiet also. I was just staring. It was like, okay, Kike, there's nothing good that can come out of your life. It was just like a bad prophecy coming to life, like, because my mother used to say a lot of nasty things when she's angry, that I'm not sure you this girl will do well in life, and like, so it just seemed like there was really nothing good in my life. If there was, this man will not top the icing of all the different ones I've experienced thus far. And then he said, don't worry, I would not penetrate. That was the only thing he said. That don't worry, I would not penetrate. And he brought out his penis and was just rubbing over my body. When he was done, I was just looking like, there was nothing funny or interesting. I was just there. And when he was done in no short time, he even gave me a peck, like to me say thank you, and then gave me money for lunch. And then he was out. I was washing and I was just staring.
How old were you at the time?
I was 13. And that was the first day, and he would continue. He would tell me when to sleep off in the living room, and I'll go to the room and pretend like I slept off, so that he wake me up in the middle of the night. And then he went to bring pornography books, because he has his own apartment himself in his house. You can't go there unless he calls you. And when he calls you, he goes directly to what he wants you to do. So you can't snoop. So he had inside one store, he bought out pornography, different books. And told me that I should study all of them one after the other. Because don't worry, my girl, you do all this for me. So funny, yeah.
Okay, well, you can laugh about it now. I'm sure you weren't laughing about it at the time.
There was nothing funny about it.
Okay.
In fact.
So you were in this strange situation. You were away from home. You were with somebody that your family trusted. Was there a part of you that ever felt, I should tell somebody, I need to tell somebody about what's going on?
Sometimes I'm tempted to. The only person I was closer to was his daughter. His last daughter. I think she's about 8 years older than me too, but because she's the only girl at home, I'm the only girl at home, so I will share the same room. So we tend to talk. Sometimes if she's talking, I'll just tell her and wish I can just say it. You know, but then she's always very smart now. She's like, so let's go and ask daddy, because we call him daddy. She's like, okay, let's go ask daddy, let's go ask daddy, let's go. And so I'll just be saying like, I wish I can, but I just felt it would not make sense. Like, would somebody believe me? Would it cause trouble? If my mother heard, we should be on my side. We should not say, hey, Kike has gone there to cause trouble and all sorts. So I just felt it was no use telling anybody. Usually, I didn't have anybody around except his immediate family, so there was nobody to tell.
Right. So was there also a possibility that based on what had happened last time, that you realized that, hey, nothing would be done, really? Because last time when you told somebody, okay, they said sorry, but that was about the end of it.
Well, I never liked my mom. So then, even leaving home was a relief for me. Anything that has to do with staying away from my mom was joy. And then there was no relationship. We don't talk, except for, Mommy, are you calling me? Okay, Mama, should I do this? There's nothing to talk about. So really, there's nothing that was prompting me to say, would you want to tell Mommy? There was nothing. The only person I loved was my father. But there was no way I could tell my father. Even if he comes around, he comes around. Then, but there was no way I could tell him.
What was it that made you hold back from telling him?
There was no relationship. And that's why the vision of my business is to promote family bonds, to encourage family to bond a lot, that we can tell each other everything, no matter how bad it is. Because there was no bond in my family, and that was why it was really difficult for me to say anything to anybody, even my sisters, because there was no bond anywhere.
About all it was that you were experiencing at the time. Now, another thing that I find interesting about your story is that a lot of the abuse was done by known people. And many times people see abusers as, you know, the big bad wolf, the stranger that nobody knows. But most people that are abused by people that they know.
It's less than 10% of abuse but are strangers. The remaining 90%
is by known people.
known people. The closer they are, the more easier it is. Because like me now, my mother would not let us go out. Even though she has gone to her shop, the instruction is get back from school, pick up the key from wherever she keeps it, open the door, and she will tell you, lock my door. She will repeat it, Kike, lock my door. So you're back from school, you're inside the padlock. Knock, we'll be answering you from the gate. You don't even go out. The fear, even the mom will come late, but the fear of if she appears now, you're in trouble. So we're always inside, and our family members will joke that I will get inside because we're always inside.
So in her mind, she probably thought she was keeping you that you were in a safe place.
In her mind, she was sure,
yes.
Especially with her brother.
So she didn't realize that the abuse was taking place in the locked environments that she had kept you in. Yeah. And I think this is why abuse persists, because oftentimes the victim is thinking, if I speak, there's going to be such a heavy price to pay. There are going to be so many family relationships that are damaged. Am I willing to go there? Was that part of the experience for you?
Yes. And then sometimes when you speak, what if you expect them to take it up? And they'll be like, don't let anybody here. Don't let spoil family. Don't let... Because if I told my mom, even if she had believed me, my mother would not have made an issue out of it. This man is like an idol in the community. Like, you see one child is not going to school, you're ready to sponsor the child to school. Somebody's in the hospital, you're ready to pay your bills. So even if my mother believed me, she would not do anything about it. She might probably say, don't go there again, and shield me from having anything to do there. But she would not be able to do anything about it because the man was a great man. He was a very big man and a very good man. Even when he died, in his obituary, I don't know what they call that book. So I went there on that day and I saw different people had written nice things. Well, I said, let me write my own to counter what everybody has written. And I wrote, if he had known, would you have done it? That's what I wrote. Well, it was dead, but I wrote it. Now, so many nice words. Really, who would want to say this person has done something bad to me? Now, I was the only one that was able to identify somebody who had done that to before. And how was I? How did I know? There was a day the lady came around to the house, and I could see the way she was relating with him. A little unruly. A little unruly. And I could see, because I know, I've been there, I could pick that. Whenever, because that lady was once their neighbor.
Right.
I could sense that when this lady was, some years ago, this man had done something to this. No, but you can't identify it, you can't pick it. You can't.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question, that you felt unable to tell people what was going on. Is there any way that those who were around you, your family, the people that loved you, could have discerned or noticed without you telling them? Are there some clues that parents, perhaps of children who are being abused, can look out for?
I began to be stubborn. My cousin would just go and report, Daddy, Kike this. And then something that you know that you should scold me for, because it doesn't over-pamper children, doesn't spoil children. So something like somebody else did, you would have probably said, okay, doesn't beat, but it likes punishment. So something like that, probably say, okay, let her wash all the toilets in the whole house or something. And you just say, oh, okay, call her for me. And then you did not see any sign of Daddy said she should do anything. It was just like giving me preferential treatment. And then I just get hungry. I was sad, moody. I can be rude.
So a lot of the anger that you felt that you weren't able to express legitimately was coming out in other ways.
It's now I know that was why I was just being there. Then I could just be angry at different things. It's now I understand why I was just always so angry or stubborn or talk back to my cousin.
Okay. So with time, this pattern continued. You began to think about yourself in a particular way. You began to think, is there something about me that is attracting this sort of behavior? Yes,
but I could not pick my hand on whatever it was. I just felt, is it a predestined trait or character or fragrance? Especially when my uncle's son now started abusing me also in the same house. In fact, that was even the worst. Like, especially when you don't have somebody who can tell your innermost feelings. it was just so terrible for me. It was more of play in my head. What could be wrong? What am I doing to be attracting? Thank God I was just 13 and what they give me to wear that I wear. I don't shop for myself. So there was no way like probably I was seducing anybody. I just could not place it, but I was always attracting the wrong persons. And with his son, even when I reported to my uncle did not do anything about it. About his son's son, in fact, I didn't want to.
Okay. So at one point you were being abused by two people out of the same family at the same
Father
time.
and son.
Okay. That's deep.
Yeah, very, very.
As a result of this abuse as well, you also started, it got you on a journey of sexual exploration very, very young in life. And you talked in the book about struggling with masturbation and pornography and such like. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yes, I can remember that I started masturbating around when I was 7, after my first experience that I can remember. And I didn't know what it was called, but I just thought that was my own interest. Well, if I'm not talking, because my mother would say, you talk too much, keep quiet. So whatever, since I'm not allowed to talk too much, so I can just keep to myself and read. If I'm not reading, I'm just alone. So the only first thing I think about is sex. Anything sexual related. Even though I did not know what real sex was or how to do real sex. But I just knew that in my head, I was just always playing sexual dramas. And the only thing that interested me was to fondle myself. So my youngest sister knew. She caught me many times. And she would tease me, especially when I did something wrong. And she can threaten me with that. I would just report. Like, she knew what was wrong. I knew what was wrong, but we did not know what it was. And she could not even, well, she wasn't so much bothered anyway. We're like, what's wrong with this one? But I didn't know what it was too. And it was not like it was that fun. I just knew that I was always, it was when I was growing up, I didn't understand what they say. Once somebody says she's horny, I just realized that sometimes I just want sexual pleasure, but I don't want sex.
Okay, but at that point you didn't know the difference between sexual pleasure and sex.
I didn't know.
But you just knew you had an urge
I was
in a
always
sense that
having,
needed to be
yes,
scratched, should we say?
And I liked reading romance novels, so it helped me have different things in my head. So when I play story here, I can play story B in my head. And then pornography, when my daddy buys them, but he thought he used to hide them, but I don't know how I always found them. So I'll just play them if I'm at home alone, or any movie that has kiss part, I'll forward it to the kiss part and I'll stop and then I'll watch it.
So all of this, do you think, was piqued by the experiences that you had that gave you a curiosity about sexual things?
Yes, for the pornography, I would say it's parental negligence. Because if it was not at home, I would not watch it. Okay. Now for the novels as well, my mother did not know. You're reading a book. Especially if I can put my book in the middle of a physics textbook. To her, I'm reading a book. I'm like, she's fine. Just open the door. In her mind, you are doing the best thing ever. And I'm busy with them and B.O. Ali Queen. So she doesn't know how to probe further, or because we were not close. If we were close, really, she'd have been able to know some things. Especially if I hide in between series of textbooks and I put one novel inside, she can't know, so long as they're all textbooks.
Right.
Now, but my curiosity to masturbation and sexual exploration in my head was a result of abuse, and it grew. As the abuse was increasing, my interest grew.
Okay. So you were not enjoying the abuse,
No.
but it was building a sexual hunger in you. As an adult, when you look back on that, how do you understand that contradiction?
Okay, one thing I realized is that you can train a body, and that's what evolves into habit. So I realized that I've been trained, my body had been trained to desire sexual pleasure. So all the abuse has just been training my body wrongly, wrong information, and that's the more reason why, whenever sexual abuse happens, sometimes the person tends to like sex and want more of real sex. Other time, the person shy away.
Right. It tends to be two extremes, doesn't it?
Two extremes. Though the percentage of shy away, their sexuals, is minimal though. But I think I fell into their sexuals now, like, I didn't know how to say in between. Because I think about sex a lot. I want to be tossed. Because now all my sexual experiences, really, I did not have penetrative sex. It's difficult to explain, but I did not have penetrative sex. With 2 years with my uncle, he will assure you every time, don't worry, I will not penetrate. I did not have penetrative sex at all. So I don't know what it is, what it feels like to have penetrative sex. But if it is sexual pleasure on the outside, my body knows. Don't even touch it, I can touch it myself. Now, because it has been trained to that extent, even when I had some boyfriends then, I got to the point of sex, I can't allow you. I then realized that, of course, then I was already reading Bible by myself. And I was going to see, oh, the Lord is not good. You need to honor the Lord with your body. And then my mother would always tell you, you are pregnant, you are dead. So I have the Lord here, I have my mother's voice here. So even if I'm saying, okay, let me consider this my boyfriend because I like him, I realize that my body does not want it. Just give me pleasure on the outside and I'm fine. You can't go further. And it was when I grew up and I realized that was the problem. I realized, hey, I don't even know which is worse. Really, so if it's usually when I went for therapy, because when I was writing the book, I started having relapse into masturbation.
Right.
I felt okay, I'd overcome it, I've been busy with life, and then I tried to bring my thoughts back from sex. Every time. It didn't matter whether I'm a believer or not. Even today, my thought always is something that I got used to. Always want to drift, so I always have to do the work of bringing it back. Every time, till now, even today, I always have to bring my thoughts back. Now, I realized that I started having urges. In fact, at a point, that was 2 years ago, I started smelling my uncle's breath. My uncle has died since. I started smelling his breath, and I knew something was wrong. So, and I knew it was not just, this was not a matter of spraying. I need to know what was wrong. So I went for therapy. And then she was trying to find out what was wrong. Do you watch pornography? No. Do you have a boyfriend? No. Do you have sex? No. So what's making you suddenly start being interested in sex? What's wrong? And then I was just gisting and I said, oh, and then I found out that I'm writing a book. That I'm just writing my experiences. And they said, that's it. That's everything has been bottled in. You just felt you have moved on and you have left everything in the past. That now you're opening the worms and that's what is happening. So I'm like, so I was writing my book. And for every time I was writing my book, I was feeling horny. I just wanted touch. From writing my own book, I'm like, Jesus Christ, what's wrong? And then I found out that, and the Lord told me that, said, you overcome by the words of your testimony. So I knew that I had to finish the book. And that if I stopped halfway because of this, I won't get anywhere. And this book was even now beyond me. It was the Lord's assignment. So I had to go through, I had a series of relapse when I was writing the book. But I knew that the goal was to finish that book. Okay. And I did.
Yeah. It seems to me almost as in, I mean, talking as people who are believers, that there was a spiritual transaction that took place. If you find yourself that you're having urges beyond your control, you're having impulses that you don't know the source of them, you don't know the root of them, and they're driving you on and they're taking you further and further into things that are outside of your depth, outside of your understanding, things that a child should not really be involved with, you know. It seems to me that the abuse opened up something as well in the spiritual realm. Do you have any sense of that?
Yes, I believe that for every sexual introduction you give to a child, for every time you introduce a child to a world of sex, you have opened them up to principalities and powers. Let's not make everything psychology. There are demons waiting out there, looking for waiting for doors to be opened. And that's more reason why they would always instigate. Now, sometimes my uncle probably might have never thought of me in that light. It has just always been good to Kike and her sisters, seeing everybody together. It's something that would make him think, okay, why would I single Kike out of everybody? And then go further and keep doing the same thing. Now, from the very first taste of whatever it is that I cannot even remember what was done when I was 7, I just realized that my body just started wanting a repeat, even when I did not want it. Even when I grew up, I realized that, and I'd overcome masturbation, I realized that sometimes I touch myself in my sleep. That was now another level. When because I'm used to touches, if you touch me at night, I'll wake up. Except if you don't have ulterior motive. Even if you have ulterior motive, any touch that is erotic, I would wake up. Even if it's my clothes that touch me, I would open my eyes. So I realized that sometimes I just wake up and I find that I was already touching myself, and I would wake up. And I will see that this is not me and this is not what I want. But why would my body be doing this? In my sleep, something was wrong. It means that there's some spirit around. They will not let you get there. Their goal is not let you get there. So sex is a stronghold that the devil uses for us as children of God, for us, for human beings generally. And that's why abused persons always abuse other persons. The cycle continues. So when I let them deal with you as a child, you will grow up, you will deal with somebody else's child, your niece, your nephew. That one will grow up and the pattern will just continue. And sitting down now, and from different stories I've heard from my father, maybe overheard, not that they were telling me, maybe my father talking to another family member, I was another family member, and I realized that there's been a background of incest in my family. Things don't just happen. I realized that if there's any possibility that probably my father has done something wrong to somebody years ago, or there's something, these things just come back repeatedly. I have a friend that never knew what abuse was until she read my book. Went to university together, sleep on the same bed. I shared some story. Did not understand what it means to abuse somebody until she read my book. She never experienced it and she did not understand it. But me, I've experienced a series of times. Even my younger sister had to open up from sharing my own experiences that she was abused by either some of the same persons or somebody else that lived with us. It's a circle and it's not physical. You can't use mathematics or physics to dissect this. It's spiritual.
Okay. So you've had a journey, and what is evident is that you've empowered yourself through that journey. But I know it can't have been easy. Aside of the sexual urges that you had, that you were dealing with, in what other ways did it impact you negatively?
Well, bad characters. You can be stubborn. And then sometimes it can push you to be independent. Sometimes you can just be so alone and not thinking that anybody wants to do anything for you with good intentions.
Right. Do you think everybody has an ulterior motive?
Yes, that will do something for you, give you something in return. So you don't get to trust people, and then you don't get to enjoy love. And I've come to realize that one of the ways God shows us love is even through people. But then I don't allow myself to enjoy love from anybody. I don't allow you. I did not even realize that I was not enjoying love till God started taking me through the journey of living with people. Like, He won't let you live alone. You will live with different people. And I will live in your house, and I can be so into myself that you'll be wondering, Kike, I cooked, you did not eat, what's wrong? And I say, I'm fine. And like, you are fine, Kike. Have you eaten? No, and you're fine. But I just realized that sometimes I just want to be me. And I can be very independent in my delegating. Okay? I want to do everything by myself. And then moody, sad.
What about self-esteem? How did you feel about yourself
My
in terms of your value?
self-esteem had always been very low. Very, very low. And I lived with a lot of fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of what will happen. Then I used to be clumsy. I can eat myself. I can eat my hand on something, hit my leg on something. I thought it was normal until when I researched and realized that sexual abuse can make you clumsy. I can, in a day or in 2 days, I would hit my leg on something. And I thought it was just me. And I realized that all these things have different buttons that they live in the brain and can just come up at any time.
Okay, so let's talk about your journey to healing. You endured intense abuse for a protracted period by a different number of people. But I see you as somebody now who's advocating for other children and for their safety. Tell us about your journey to healing and transformation.
God found me, and my healer is Jesus Christ. So I don't know how I got here. I cannot say this is what I did or these are the steps I took. I just know that I made Jesus my best friend. So I would always run back to the Word. I always try to stay in God's presence. That's the only solution I have. So when I'm tired or I'm weary or I'm depressed or whatever feeling is springing up, I run back to the only thing I know, and that's Jesus. So I'll stay there. I'll stay in the place of prayer or worship, and I will cry. I'm like, I'm afraid. I don't know what to do. Please help me. Or like, I don't want to do this again. I don't want to do this again. So I don't have any step that I took. It wasn't even therapy because I had to stop therapy. Therapist said I should not write the book. I should hold on it. I should hold on anything talking to anybody about sex, or because then I had some teenagers talking to me that they were having some sexual issues. I'd gone to the church to speak, and they said, don't talk to anybody about sex or anything. Don't try to. And I stayed away for like 3 months, and I did not write the book. And then the Holy Spirit said in the place of prayer, I was going out with my friends and we were praying. And the Holy Spirit said, Kiki is supposed to write a book. Children have been abused every day and she's not writing it. And I did not tell anybody that I was writing the book. So I knew that I either had to obey the therapist that said don't write in our own understanding. I had to obey God. So I'm like, God, but you know that this is affecting me. Like, I don't want to be a sinner. I don't want to touch myself. And he goes, you overcome by the word of your testimony. So even if you relapse, don't worry, I know that you will, but I'm sending you on this. So I find my strength in God, and that's why I always run to. And that's why I don't joke with God. My environment, my office, everything around me was saturated. God. I'm not joking at all. That's the only place I find strength. And it's the joy of the Lord that I have inside of me. It's actually my strength.
Okay. So let me talk about, let me share what I deducted from your book. Okay. Because I think sometimes when you go through an experience, sometimes other people can help you interpret or distill kind of key things. And I remember from the book you mentioned that you got to university, you had a lot of struggles because your parents were not able to support you financially. And it seems that was the time when your spiritual life began to blossom, and grow. And so you were getting a lot of teaching that was transforming your thinking, that was lifting and changing how you saw yourself. Because because when I read your book, it's not only a story about sexual abuse, it's also a story about it's about physical abuse as well. It's about neglect. You were saying earlier, and it's a common slogan. They say, "Hurt people, hurt people."
Yes.
So when you started by talking about your mother, and you talked about her childhood and how she was raised, she was simply passing on what she had learned and how she had been raised. So the fact that you were left to your own devices from a young age, you were given a lot of responsibility beyond what you were able to cope with in terms of maturity. And when you failed in those tasks, you would often come in with very, very harsh physical punishment, a lot of also verbal abuse. And it broke you down. It seemed to me that it broke you down in the book. And I can see that it was that distance that you had from her that also meant that perhaps the abuse could take place for such a long time because there wasn't like an older, trusted adult that you could go to and say, look, this is what is happening to me. This is what I'm experiencing. And so from becoming a Christian and going to church and hearing different messages, it seemed to me like your paradigm and who you thought you could be began to change. You began to realize that, oh, actually, you didn't have to be this person that had always been abused. You didn't have to be this person who was also always a victim. There could be a different picture. There could be a different future for you. And it seems to me that was part of what began to awaken, this hope and this desire for you to grab hold of a different future from maybe what you felt was going to be your natural destiny from the experiences you'd had growing up. I don't know whether that resonates with you.
Yes.
Yeah. I got that very, very strongly. How did you drift into counseling? Because you mentioned that you had therapy at some point. How did that come about?
When I went for therapy.
Yeah. What led you there? What led you to
therapy? It was
therapy?
when I was writing the book and then I was having relapse.
Okay.
So I was smelling my uncle's breath. I was so much wanting to touch myself. Even when I'm fasting, even when I'm fasting, I don't get on you. The devil knows. But when I'm fasting and I can't even read my Bible, all I'm just thinking of is sex. Thinking that one of my ex-boyfriend that we used to kiss. I'm like, what is wrong?
Okay, so all of that had been broken when you became a Christian and you became
not just when I became a Christian.
consecrated.
It was deliberate work. I realized that okay, these are the things I do that I do not like, that I think was not in line with God's word. So I was taking it one step at a time. Okay, help me with this. Okay, the thinking. How can I reduce it? So and God was helping me out. So I started realizing that reading also helps to reform your thinking.
So you were doing a lot of strategic things. When you say so when you say it was not God, you know, as a therapist myself, as a counselor, I can see a lot of the things that you were doing. You were changing your thinking patterns. You were capturing thoughts. You were replacing thoughts. So you were doing quite a lot of strategic mental re-engineering, even though it seemed like you were not aware that that was what was going on.
I was not aware, but it was a lot of reading. A lot of reading. I was reading books on business, character, motivation, leadership, strategy. I was just reading books that were not love related. So I was reading books. I was filling my mind with books on business, how to run a business, how to be an entrepreneur. I'll go for training on this, how to run a business, how to start. And I was doing photography training. So I was filling my brain with different information that had nothing to do with sex completely. So it was helping me to control my thoughts though, but then I was always reading Christian books.
So you were intentionally restructuring your life?
Though I did not know that was what I was doing.
You didn't know that was what you were doing, but that is what you were doing.
Yes.
And I think also the words of life that you were hearing, the call to purity, was maybe dealing with and judging some of the things that you had been involved with.
The association, the people I was relating with, the people I was talking to. I was not just having friends for friendship's sake. I was having a pastor this as a friend or sister this as a friend. That when we are together, we are discussing how a soul will be saved, or one thing that just does not relate to sex or anything of the like.
So you intentionally took a different path.
Yes.
So tell me how you drifted now into children's advocacy. At what point did you decide, I want to come out, I want to share this story, because lots of people have been abused and lots of people don't share the story. So what was it that, made you decide, I'm going to share my story?
Oh, okay. Now, I did not even answer how I went for that therapy then.
Oh, yes.
Because of all the relapse that I was having, I knew that something was wrong. And then because I had the Spirit of God, I knew that what was wrong was not a matter of prayer and fasting. I knew that I needed to find out what was wrong. So I spoke to a pastor who also had a background in psychology. There's something is wrong, I think I need to see a psychologist. It's okay, let's go for therapy, that I know someone. So when I was referred to, and then the lady now, so I was going for sessions to find out what was wrong. And she was trying to say, and then she even said, Kike, when you want to get married, she said, thank God you came now, that there's a lot of baggage you're carrying. That there's a therapy that you have to do with your husband that will marry you, because there's a lot of things there. But therapy opened my eyes, and I think it was God now, because if those things now did not happen, really, do you know that I would not be doing all these things I'm doing now? Why? I wanted to, my dream was to run my business, be a giant in children photography. I wanted photography, children, nothing abuse related. Once in a while, if you invite me to come and speak to you, talk about my story, once in a while, I'm interested. When I have opportunities to volunteer, to teach sexual education, I do. But that I'm paying attention to those things, no way. So, but then when I went to teach sexual education in the school, I was talking to teenage girls. I was to teach sexual education. So after class, we told them, okay, write some of your experiences that you cannot talk about. Don't put your name. But if you want us to talk about it, put your name. And the things that these children wrote to me, my uncle is doing this, my father is doing this, my brother is doing this. I couldn't, that night when I got home, I was just crying, Father, I can't do this. I wish I didn't even have to go back to those schools to see those children, like, how can I help them? My father is, I can't even take them away from their father. My brother is doing this. I went to school the next day and I saw all these teenage children, 11-year-olds, were even in some classes. I just said, okay, so I think I can't reach many persons by talking. I think I need to write a book so I can reach more persons. So I thought it was my idea. And that's why I said, okay, I said, but I'll be 30 in 2017. What would make me happy when I'm 30? I said, okay, to be able to reach more people with my abuse story and help more people. So I was writing, and I started picking up to write. Now, moving here now, I've been always, anything that has to do with children, I volunteer, I sign up, so you see me there. So I've always been saying that I advocate for child protection. I just say it. I didn't know what it was. I just knew that anything that has to do with children, you'll find me there. I just say it. Now, but from writing the book, the picture was just growing bigger, especially when I had to read online, because the last chapter, you see, was more educative, where I was writing on how to protect children, how to identify abuse. So I had to do research for those ones. Those ones were not my story. And seeing some of those things and understanding, oh, this is what I was doing, oh, this happened to me, oh, I was just having a bigger picture, better understanding that this thing is more. Especially when I released the book, and people will call me and say, somebody say, I didn't know I was abused until I read your book, and I was seeing things that happened there. I'm like, what? How can somebody be abused and not know? And I knew this thing is more. It's bigger than I can imagine. And then when you see the United Nations SDGs, the 16th SDG on sexual violence and justice for everyone, I just knew it was more. And that's when I knew that the assignment, the instruction to go into child photography was not just because God wanted to say, oh, be a pioneer in this, no. And it wasn't because God wanted to make me a name. And that the reason why I'm being Kikelomo, a child is meant to be cared for, is also not an error. Or when God told me to name the book Kikelomo was also not an error. And I knew that the child protection was the divine assignment, which the time is obviously now, that the whole world is just beginning to align in that direction.
So what lessons are there for parents? If you had, a parent of a young girl in front of you, she's just had a baby girl, or even a baby boy, because it's not only girls who are abused.
One of my abusers, I wrote in my book, that it was abused also.
Yeah. I mean, I have a friend who told me that he was abused from the age of about 12 by a housemate. Who used to insist on him having sex with her regularly. So how can we as parents protect our children? How can we keep them safe? What are the boundaries or values or skills that we can give them that can keep them safe?
Okay, so on the physical, we need to love our children more and let them know that we love them. We need to spend time with them. I know we don't have more time in this our generation. We are all busy, we are dream catchers, vision builders, everybody's
trying to build something,
chase something. Like, I don't want to waste away. But let's spend as much time, for every time we have, let's spend it with them. Now, let's not just spend it with them by sitting there at home, they're watching TV and just looking and say, I'm at home. No, now let's talk to them, let's be their friend. Be your child's best friend. Let them be able to tell you anything. Do you know that I learned parenting? I don't have children of my own yet. But I had to learn motherhood with my younger sister. My middle sister was closer to me, so she's the boss lady. My youngest sister was 9 when my mother left, and I was 16. So the only mother figure she had was me. I had to learn motherhood with her because the verbal abuse and physical abuse I experienced with my mom, I translated it to her. I was always talking, nagging her, and then I was always angry, and small thing, I would slap her. She lived in the UK for a while, and after a while she was brought back to Nigeria because she was very stubborn. And I didn't know that apparently she was abused before she even left Nigeria. With my dad's friend who was supposed to take care of us when my mother was not around. But I did not know as well. So I learned motherhood with her. Until when the Holy Spirit told me, he said, Kiki, I love her. How can I love this girl? I shouted back at me, I will slap you. And so I realized that I started wanting to become her friend. So even when she's hungry, she knows I will talk, so she's unruly. And then I would then be quiet. I would then seem to be foolish. I deliberately started loving her. So even if the whole world reports her, and I say, okay, when I call her, I'm like, okay, so I want to hear your own part of the story. Really, like before, I would have slapped her. Okay, so what happened? And I realized that I started getting closer to her and listening to her. So what happened in school? What business you want to do in school? There's no money, so start the business in school. And talking to her and relating with her. If anything happens now, she'll call me first ever in the world. I feel so proud. She still called me today. So when I come into Badon, because she's having a program on Saturday, when are you coming to Pato? So I'm coming tomorrow. So what are you wearing? My sister would not do that before because there was no bond, there was no closeness. But I realized that the little time I have, I will try to spend it with her. I will listen to her when she's talking. I try to be her friend. I want parents to know that you can't, because the enemy is really, really close now. Be their friend. Let them be able to tell you everything. And don't be afraid to tell your children. We cannot protect our children from information again. I'm sorry. Don't let's say, oh, she's a child. Don't let them know. Let the little girl know that what differentiates it from a boy. You have vagina, he has penis. There's nothing like kokoro. There's nothing. Let's call it the name. Let's let them know that this is your body. If anybody touch you, tell mommy. So anybody that touch them, let them see what you will do with that person. So they know that when somebody else touch me again, I will tell mommy because they know. So they're waiting. They tell mommy and they see what mommy does. But if mommy does it, mommy just say, okay, I will talk to him. I don't do anything. When something much more happens, what will mommy do will be the first thought. Let's be able to talk to them and be close to them and educate them as much as we can. And then we have to pray for them. Because we wrestle not against flesh and blood. So we always have to pray because sometimes, you can't still pick it. What if it's the father that's abusing the son? How can you pick it? So at the end of the day, we have to do a lot on our knees. Father, show me that I may know whatever before it happens. I had to learn one of these places that when bad things want to happen, in the spiritual realm, we are looking for who will receive it. We are busy, we are not praying. So Father, just show me. Now it is love. The love you have for a person is what will make, is what a mother will say, my baby is crying. It's the love. It's the bond you share with that child. So if there's a level of love and closeness you have with someone, and when something wants to happen, sometimes you just have a knowing. So even in the spiritual, we need to pray a lot for our children, for our words, so that we can know ahead. Sometimes you can just come in just in time. Or just say, something happened, you're not telling me.
So you're talking about being much more present, being more present, not only physically, although that's important, but also present in terms of being mindful, being attentive, what's going on
emotional
in my child's
presence.
life. Yes, a lot of work to do.
I don't envy them, really.
I have a lot of work to do, but I think you're doing a fantastic job in helping us understand and bring an awareness to a lot of people who don't, know that these sorts of things are happening or don't know how to equip their children should they ever be in the unfortunate circumstance that they experience it. So I want to celebrate you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you for being so bold and courageous enough to share your story. You share it with such ease and without any sense of shame.
That's why the book is free, really.
Yeah, but I think for me, the sense of freedom you have about sharing your story shows that you don't have any sense of guilt. Sometimes there's survivor's guilt, but your freedom says to me, I'm not responsible for what happened. It was something that was done to me. If there's anybody who should have shame, it should be the perpetrators, it should be the abusers. And you haven't remained a victim, you've become a survivor.
Yes,
the things that that threaten to beat you down, you use them as stepping stones to mount up.
Exactly.
So I really celebrate that. God bless you.
Thank you.
God
Amen.
continue to strengthen you and use you as a voice piece in your generation.
Amen.
Thanks for coming on the Winning Woman Show.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you.
Unfortunately, child sexual abuse is not a rare occurrence. Many young women and children and even boys are sexually abused every day, and not by strangers, by people they know, by uncles, brothers, fathers, aunts, house help, people who they should trust, oftentimes abuse that trust. That's why we did today's show. And this is just a wake-up call to everybody who is parenting, whether you're a mom or dad or somebody in authority over a child that you love and care about. It's important for us to be mindful, to notice the child, to notice changes in behavior, to notice unusual occurrences, and to take the time to find out what may be ailing that child. Let's also be mindful not to think that there are some people in our lives who cannot abuse our children. Unfortunately, many abusers don't have the label abuser on their head. So let's be mindful about who we let into our homes, and let's be mindful about the contact they have with our children and how much we supervise their interaction with our children. Exposing a child to sexual experience is like putting a bomb in the hand of a terrorist. It's a dangerous thing. And so I hope that you've learned from today's show lots of important tips that can help you to make sure that your child is not a statistic in this area.